Have you ever finished an RPG and immediately wanted to dive back into its world? Some tales are so masterfully crafted, so brimming with unforgettable characters and twists, that half the time you don't even replay them for the gameplay, but just to experience the journey all over again. These are my personal top 5 story-driven RPGs that I think are worth replaying today.
They're coming!
Tonight, we have vengeance!
Dragon Age Origins. I'm going to apologize in advance as this list is definitely going to have a few BioWare games on it, starting with arguably their best game to date, and not arguably the best game in the franchise, Dragon Age Origins. It's like a spiritual successor to the early Baldur's Gate games with a real-time with pause combat system. Now, while this game, why it's so replayable, even if I'm boring and choose the same thing pretty much every time I replay it, is in its namesake, Origins. You see, this game gives 6 unique starting stories, Origins, that, offer you a look at the lore of various groups of species and gives you context to the world and your character. You have human noble, a mage, a commoner dwarf, a noble dwarf, city elf, and a Dalish wood elf. This gives a lot of flexibility for replaying the game and allows you to connect to areas and these other different characters in a different way than you normally would by choosing a different origin. It feels like every choice you make has effects on the story you play, and depending on which origin you choose while creating your character, certain points in the story will have much more impact on you than others. There are side quests, but they've always felt like they pay off at the end, so they feel less like filler, especially because the world is pretty closed, so they waste time, they waste less time by you running around all the time. The dark and gritty tone follows through the whole game, which is sadly lost in the rest of the franchise, barring a few moments in Dragon Age 2. The characters, and especially companions, are some of not only BioWare's best, but the industry as a whole, with the likes of Morrigan, a shape-shifting witch of the wilds, a cynical and antisocial witch in a world where all mages are feared for their power. Alistair, the goofy, sarcastic, dry sense of humor Grey Warden, but with a heart of gold that wears his emotions on his sleeve. The list is endless. While the gameplay is a bit dated in the year of our Lord 2025, the story, world-building, characters, writing, quest, everything is just pitch perfect throughout the whole game. It's a tragedy what BioWare eventually turned this franchise into, with Veilguard essentially killing any and all interest in the future of the series.
You're the same as me. You have a mind flayer tadpole in your brain. Let's try to find a solution together, before it's too late.
Baldur's Gate 3. Adapted from the 5th edition of tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, this is a generation-defining game that completely turned the industry on its head a few years ago. It seemed no matter where anyone looked, this game was being talked about. An absolute sweep at the Game Awards, winning everything it was nominated for, including Best Game, and all of it justly deserved. While not having the most deep narrative in its overarching, story, what elevates this game to anyone's top 5 story RPGs is the absolute amount of choice you have. No game have I ever played has offered this much gameplay and narrative freedom. Every single thing you do, or person you talk to, or how you talk to them, has this web of connectivity that would blow anyone's mind. The game is divided into 3 narrative arcs, with a large explorable location tied to each. When you're just talking in non-combat scenarios, it is primarily experienced, in real time. There are 288 quests, with significant creative freedom as to how you can complete them. Some being, mutually exclusive to the regions, and some unfolding across the multiple story arcs of the game. Companions have their own side quests as well, and almost any character can die, including some that are integral to the overall narrative, and all speaking characters are fully voiced. I don't think you could pay me enough money to look over all of the variables and the scripts that this game has running in the background before I die of old age. If you've ever thought that you've played an RPG where you had total creative freedom, then you haven't played this game. Because this is that game. This is the game where you can literally do anything you ever wanted.
Soon she'll wake and paint again. Paint a new number. ticking down every year.
Expedition 33, the newest game on this list and already one of the best games not only of this generation, not only of the last decade, but one of the best of all time. A game made by a French studio of only 33 people. They created not only a turn-based RPG that even turn-based haters grew to love due to its interactivity with the combat system, but one of the most emotionally challenging and thought-provoking game stories ever. Taking place in a dark fantasy French setting, every year for the past 67 years, the people of the isolated island of Lumiere have suffered an event called the Gommage, where an entity known as the Paintress paints an ever-decreasing number on a huge monolith out in the distance, and all humans with an age equal to or above that number disappear. Every year after the Gommage, Lumiere sends an expedition of volunteers to head to the mainland in an effort to, defeat the Paintress before she can paint a new number. Expedition 33 is the latest to set out. What starts out as a simple, straightforward story quickly twists and expands to what you think you know. Told in a 3-act structure, the end of every act is an emotional roller coaster that never lets up on the intrigue. Whether you're weeing or wooing with lovable characters like Esquier, your main form of transportation later on, or bonding with the rest of the expedition as you explore different locales and solve puzzles and participate in fun beach games for cool swimwear costumes to unlock, for much needed levity to how gut-punching this story can be. From the beautiful, mesmerizing, like one of the greatest soundtracks ever, to the voice acting, to the believable, mature writing, this game feels like a game made by adults for adults. It's not your typical JRPG where the writing is predictable and repetitive or treats you like you're 5. It's gritty and mature, and it's just real. It feels like people actually talking and interacting with real people, not like anime, like tropes that they do. So it just feels like real people instead of like a game character like reading lines. If this is the first game by this new small studio of former Ubisoft devs, I can't wait to see what they do next after this success. And they've already said that Clair Obscur is the name for this franchise. Expedition 33 was just the first game in it. So here's hoping for way more from these guys for the future. Easily the game of the year. Anything else wins game of the year, and someone was clearly paid off.
Once we were many. Now we are few. Hunters, killers of the world's filth. Witchers, the ultimate killing machines. Among us, a legend. The one they call Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf.
The Witcher 3. A game so good most people don't even talk about the first 2 games. You know how crazy it is for someone to skip the first 2 games or anything in a trilogy? Most people would never recommend that, but with The Witcher, it's the one exception to the rule. While the first 2 games are good in their own right and have interesting stories with good writing and voice acting, it's this game that took the world by storm and put CD Projekt Red on the map as one of the best developers of the modern gaming era. The game takes place in a fictional fantasy world based on, Slavic folklore. Players control Geralt of Rivia, a monster slayer for hire known as a Witcher, and his search for his adopted daughter Ciri, who is on the run from the Wild Hunt. Every single quest, and I'm not exaggerating, has excellent writing that not only it doesn't break the suspension of disbelief. You are always in this universe, so no matter what you do, you feel like you're always participating in like an excellent book that's also somehow a choose your own adventure type book. Every single quest is script written. Nothing is phoned in or filled with boring fetch quest. Every single character interaction and quest is some of the best written in this medium. Hell, even some of the side quests in this game have better stories and developments than some main quests in other games. Choices have consequences, and they matter like in no other game. You can achieve so many different endings, different fates for different characters, and even have the choice of 2 different romances, some of the best written and hottest in gaming with Triss and Yennefer. And let me tell you, people still argue to this day about these 2. It's like the Jacob or Edward of gaming. So which team are you on?
We're at war. No one wants to admit it, but humanity is under attack. One man, one very specific man, might be all that stands between humanity and the greatest threat of our brief existence.
Mass Effect Trilogy. I'm cheating really bad with this one, but there's no way I can pick just one game out of this trilogy, as it isn't the sum of its full parts by looking at them individually. It's just not a complete game to me without all three. Repeating myself again for like the 10th video, but Mass Effect, which I consider all three games essentially one long video game, is my favorite video game of all time that I replay every year. The story of Commander Shepard and the relatively simple story of hunting down a rogue Spectre agent in the first game eventually blows up into an epic space opera for the fate of the entire galaxy with the arrival of a machine race of beings known as the Reapers, who come every 50,000 years to wipe out all intelligent life in the galaxy. While the main story can't really be changed or influenced in any way, what you can change is how people view your Shepard. Just like with what BioWare did before in Knights of the Old Republic with the light and dark side, here you have Paragon and Renegade choices, essentially flavor storytelling of how people perceive your custom Shepard when making choices. You even get special interrupt gameplay moments in the second and third game to cut conversations short or change how they proceed depending on your reputation. Are you a no-nonsense, ends justify the means, renegade kind of Shepard? Or are you save everyone you can no matter what personal cost to you, Paragon Shepard? What makes this trilogy of games one of the best stories in gaming is how personalized it is for every single person. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who made the exact same choices as you all the way through to the end. While the RPG gameplay experience becomes more streamlined with the second and third games, at least in terms of its gunplay, all three remain as some of the best RPG shooters in the genre. What makes these games timeless and why we celebrate them every November 7th on N7 Day is the characters and the story of these games. These are probably the best companions in any video game ever. Tali, Garrus, Liara, Rex, every character I list, and it's probably going to be somebody's favorite. If there is any game on this list you have never tried, these games are the ones I'd recommend to just about anybody that wants a true, personalized, tailored experience on one of the best sci-fi stories of all time. And those are my personal top 5 narrative RPGs that are most definitely worth replaying. Now, this isn't really like a top 5 where it's from like 5 to 1. You can replace these in like any order that you want. This is just like a list of 5. There's definitely a few like honorable mentions that I could put here as well, like the 2 Knights of the Old Republic games from BioWare. Pretty much like almost anything from old school BioWare could easily be like on anybody's list, and so on. But I'll probably talk about those another time. As always, thank you so much for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. It means the world to me. Let me know what your personal narrative-driven RPGs you love in the comments. And until then, talk to you next time.